Hi, team. Welcome to another week of a great conversation with John. Both he and I just sharing our hearts in terms of what matters to us and how we want to give hope to you. And so, John, a topic that is near and dear to both of us is really just that conversation around labels, the labels that we give people, the labels we put on ourselves, the labels that we live by, versus just the ability to love and to really anchor into loving each other human to human versus this judgment or this space of labels. So, what are your thoughts on labels versus love?
Yeah, it's such a great topic, Colette. It's because it's rich right now, and it's right there in our face. We've seen the whole situation with Black Lives Matter and this whole struggle that seems to be ongoing in society about people sort of identifying another person by the color of their skin or by their race. And the label that they put on them, that there's they're black or they're Hispanic or they're white Anglo-Saxon or they're Asian or whatever. And then we've got other situations where there's the rise of greater equality amongst the sexes and labels on people because of their sex. They're a man, they're a woman, or they're transgender, or they're gender non-binary, or all those different things that are coming out. And I feel like, at the end of the day, if we have a belief that there is this essence that is all of us, whether some call it a soul, some call it a spirit, some call it a beingness, I doubt any of those have gender or race or color or anything like that. And they're just, it's the essence of the humanity that's within each person. And I have a sense that humanity sort of stumbles forward. It evolves, and it does it in a clumsy sort of way, but it keeps moving forward. And this whole area of us interacting with each other through a label is really being challenged right now, because it used to be man and woman, black and white, and now we've got all these incredible variations appearing, from gay, transgender, queer, and then, non-binary. Then we've got the manifestation of the rise of all these new different cultures starting to enter our lives more significantly. Religions, in a very strongly Christian economy, when you get a rise of Islam or that, there's these threats and misunderstandings, and even to the point now where you've got people, two of my good friends, their daughters in their teens they now identify as male, and all of those things can be so challenging because they're not what any of us are used to. But what we forget is that beyond all of that color and all those post-it notes and sticky labels, there's a human being in there. And I received an email from a person in the US who's interested in the workplace wellbeing initiative that I chair for the Global Wellness Institute, who's interested in contributing to the initiative, and when I asked a few more questions, and this person identifies as gender non-binary, and they said it's an area that needs to be understood. And I thought about that for a while. I sat with it and I contemplated it for a day. I thought, what do I do with that? How do I respond to that in a way that can move things forward? Because at the end of the day, being a man, I can never fully understand what it's like to be a woman. I can never fully understand what it would be like to be a gay person or to be a Chinese person, because I'm not that. I'm a white Anglo-Saxon male. So how can I even begin to try to understand what gender non-binary is like? How can I understand that? My niece identifies as gender non-binary. And then I thought about, well, actually, do I actually need to understand it? Or do I just need to see this being as another being, fully appreciate them, fully accept them without having to work it all out, love them, give them a space to be who they are fully. And at the same time, me, without pretense, learning to be more and more of who I really am,
Mhm.
and we can meet as equals. Our labels don't matter.
Well, John, as beautiful as the concept is of really, being able to all of us love each other, there's so much misunderstanding that's out there. I know that something that's so deep to my heart is just the hurt that the world is going through. There's so much
Mhm.
hurt. And really, how do we heal the world, the hearts, the people? And to me, that's about respect and understanding. Like, we need to understand where everybody's coming from. We need to understand their hurt. We need to understand their journey. We need to understand why it is that this label is important to them, or really being able to understand from an identity perspective. And I have a daughter who has Asperger's. She has special um, gifts from that perspective, and she wasn't diagnosed until she was in college,
Mhm.
and didn't know anything about it. My sister-in-law watched a show on 2020, and they were explaining it. And my daughter's 38 now, so this was a long time ago. And so my sister-in-law said, "Hey, this sounds like Amanda." And so I watched it. And the whole time that I was raising Amanda, I have 3 children. And so she's the oldest. I just knew from my Christian background, that's my belief system that I'm anchored in, that God has a purpose for every person and God doesn't make a mistake. And there's nothing wrong with Amanda. And so
Mhm.
I was never trying to fix her. I was always just finding a way to love her based on the way that God had created her. And that took me in a much different space because, all the rest of us in our family were athletes. We pretty much have the same operating system. And so it was pretty easy. And Amanda showed up and blessed us with a completely different operating system and really, challenged everything about our beliefs and what we think, because she spoke a completely different language from a life perspective. And as much as a mom that I wanted to certainly love her, honor, and respect her, I still needed her to fit into a system. She needed to go to school. She needed to, fit in certain ways. She was made fun of. She was bullied. There was a lot of hardship that happened. And so constantly I was just working to try to make her be a certain way so that she wouldn't get hurt. I mean, that's all I was trying to do from that perspective. And then when we discovered the label of Asperger's, she cried. She was just so happy that there was an operating system with a name on it that she could relate to. And
Mhm.
that is really where I found so much love, in being able to identify in a way that says, nothing's wrong with me. Like, this is who I am. And now when I share from a label perspective who I am, the desired outcome is that you understand me and that you actually are able to get along with me, or we can coexist and we can find a way to grow and connect on deeper levels rather than judgment. So that was the gift that her journey gave me, is that there is great power in having a label that says this is really the way I operate, so that
Yeah.
when we communicate, now I get to communicate to her heart in a way that's honoring and respectful, rather than trying to rewire her to be the way society and systems needed her to be.
Yeah, and that's such a beautiful story, and I agree with it 100%. Um, and I think that, you know, what I was basically saying before is that, when she was trying to, well, when society was trying to fit her into something else, it meant that she wasn't being accepted
Mhm.
for who she is and who she
Mhm.
was. But imagine if she had have come into a world that did have that capacity to just fully accept, and just go, wow, she's different to all of us,
Mhm.
but man, is she really good at this? And what I mean, is sort of discovering what a person, how a person wants to offer their service in life, and create a space for a person to do that. I look back at my school days and, I remember some of the kids who got picked on and my part in that. And I had a lot to feel when I really let myself feel all that, because I had to let myself feel how those people felt.
Mhm.
But that made me more dedicated to supporting people who were being put down and who were
Mhm.
being treated badly. And you see, there's an opportunity in that too, that service appears, opportunities to serve appear in so many ways. And whilst I might get really, really good at being a person who's just being totally accepting to everybody without needing to understand, you know, where they're coming from, I might be around other people who aren't prepared to create that space. So I can then turn my attention to caring for those people to help them to see what they're doing to others by their demands placed from the labels that they want to put on people.
Mm.
You know, we do want to put labels on people so that we can feel comfortable around them,
Mhm.
you know?
Well, it just brings everything back to me, right? I'm constantly trying to make the world make sense to me just on a human to human level. And I'm only going to be as good as my knowledge and really my understanding and my depth of trust and faith to be able to love other people that are different from me. And, another lesson that life has given me as we speak about this is my husband died 17 years ago. And so he was young and I was young, and our family was young, and certainly I didn't plan on being a widow at 39 years old and having a baby that was 5, and just so many pieces. And so I learned grief in such a way that changed my whole life, because as an athlete I had grown up being strong and just going for, I can do this, I can, kind of suppress any kind of feelings or doubts or fears and push through it. And when he died, it was bigger than anything I had the ability to be able to manage. And
Mm.
so, literally brought me to my knees, to a just, like my world crashed and crumbled. And I got to really honor what grief was about, and understanding that when I surrendered all of my hurt, that's when the healing began to happen. But it took my husband dying, who I loved and trusted. It was like okay for me to grieve the loss of my husband. The world let me, they supported me, they were there for me to grieve my husband. If they, would let me grieve the fact that, my sporting career didn't turn out the way I wanted, or I had had some other failures. I couldn't grieve those. I had to just kind of push through as if I could figure out that that would be okay. And boy, when I opened up my heart to grieving, I found so many areas in my life that I hadn't grieved. And so that was really when I watch the world right now, I just think, boy, can we hold the world in such a gentle and just beautiful space that we're able to grieve that hurt that all of us are going through. And can
Mm.
we do it in the way that I was given the gift of acceptance when my husband died, because that was okay to be grieving that, versus
Mm.
some other judgment of whether it's okay to grieve the loss of a dream or the loss of something else.
Mm.
And so when I think about just us talking about these conversations and the things that we all need, it's just starts from a place of our truth. And if we're injured or if we're hurt or if we're grieving, that's okay, that's where we are. And another gift that I got from that journey was really, so many people would say, we're so sorry. And I mean, nobody quite knows what to do. I don't even know what to do. And I lived through it. But it's
Mm.
like I really gained the understanding that no one will know what I have gone through unless you have gone through losing a spouse or the loss. So
Yeah.
it gave me that great depth of just understanding, to be so much beside a person on their journey versus pushing them or telling them they should be this way or any of those things. And that's another thing I just think of. If we could all just get beside each other and be on the journey and walk through whatever it is every person's going through, it's a beautiful journey side by side. It's not so fabulous when we're behind pushing and frustrated and wishing it would happen a certain way, or forward pulling because we have a belief system that it needs to be this way or it needs to be that way. And so that's really what shows up for me as I listen to your words and we just really process this power of where we are right now.
Beautiful. Thank you. And you're so right. It's like I've never lost a spouse. So I can only imagine what you went through. I remember my ex-wife telling me that when she had a terrible series of events where her uncle was murdered, a couple of years later her younger brother was murdered, and then a couple of years later her mother died at the age of 50. And the grief was profound. And she said, all I wanted anybody to do was just sit beside me and shut up and just be with me. But everyone was wanting to tell me stuff and try to fix me, and it's a natural state. And whoever you are, whatever state, that's your natural state, and I should be okay with that. And if I'm not okay with that, then that's my signal that I've got a bit of work to do on myself to find out what that resistance is that I have. And like with your daughter, you know, when she stepped into the space, because she's not the usual thing, people resist. Your school teachers resist, other kids resist. But what would happen if they didn't resist and they just went, okay, here you are, you know, this is how you're showing up in the world. This is who you are. And welcome. You know?
Well, and John, yes, I mean, I hope the world, I have, you know, great faith that the world can heal from all of this. I just think from a starting place perspective, it comes from a place of curiosity and just that true open-heartedness and open-mindedness to say, you know, tell me your story. Tell me what you want me to know about you. I'm curious about you. And so our questions and our exchange are so for each other that we're really wanting to connect on a deep heart connection versus kind of one up each other or tell you my part or anything from that perspective. And so just such a gift of let me show up from a place of curiosity.
Yeah, well, what you're talking about there is, do I make it about me or do I make it about you? You know,
Or
like,
can we make it about us, right? I mean, what a
yeah.
beautiful combination that comes together when we're not divided and it's not you and me, but it's like, wow, when we take the combination of you and me and pour it in together, that's where it's so beautiful because it becomes this really beautiful combination that could have never happened unless you and I had the courage to go in and have some conversations that were really unique and authentic to whatever's on our mind. And then collectively, we changed because we invested that time.
Mhm. There was a fabulous scene. I don't know whether you ever saw it, but it's an old film with Steve McQueen in it, Papillon.
I haven't.
And he was in this place where he was actually in a camp with people with leprosy.
Mm.
And he's sitting and talking with them, and one of the lepers offered him food, and he took the food and he ate it. And a little bit of further down, when things had developed, you know, that leper, that man said to him, how did you know that the form of leprosy that we have is not contagious? And he said, I didn't.
Yeah.
You know, just present, I'm here now. There's a beautiful saying that says, and I think Harry Palmer quoted it, and I'm sure he did, and I'm not sure it was his original, whether he was quoting it from somewhere else, but it is, I am here now with you.
Mm.
And we got a long way to go, but I feel like in a clumsy sort of way, we're getting there, you know, like we really are. And you know, there are people who are frightened and they present with anger and resistance and a lot of intense judgment and those sorts of things. but we've got to love them just as much. And I was talking to some animal liberation people. They're vegans and they've got a lot of charge on how animals are treated in factory farms. And I agree with them. And they were saying that, you know, people have got to have more compassion for animals. People have got to have more compassion for animals. And they're right on that case too. And I just asked them, I said, have you got compassion for the people who are brutalizing animals? And they said, no way. I said, well, I feel like until you can get to that place, things aren't going to change. Because you want other people to go to a place that you don't want to go to. Mm. And it was very interesting. And because all of us, me, you, the Pope, we're all learning. We're all learning. You know, we're human beings and we can get better. And if we do step on somebody's toes or we do humiliate somebody, that's not a life sentence. That's an opportunity to apologize, to make amends, and to learn. Mm-hmm. Be better next time. Yeah. You know, it's yeah. And it's challenging, you know. And when my mum was in a hostel in her later years, she was not well. And she couldn't go to the bathroom by herself. And so the carers, who are often young Indian men, would be taking my mother to the bathroom to help her through the process of toileting. And I used to look at these young men and think, could I do what they do? Mm-hmm. I don't think I could. I had to own that I couldn't. But they did it with care and reverence and brightness. And I loved those young guys, you know. The care that they took of my mum, amazing. And I realized that we as Anglo-Saxons can learn a lot from people from India about how you treat old people.
Yes.
Huh?
Well, and can't we learn from everyone? I mean, children teach us hourly about just the innocence of love and joy and play, and older people have so much wisdom. And I really think it's a beautiful combination as we watch our world changing, that our next geners have so much information. I mean, when I grew up, I really was attached to people because they taught me information. So I learned from people. And this gen, I mean, they're so much smarter than any of us, because in 5 minutes they can Google and find out the best of the best of the best. So information is everywhere. The relationship to wisdom is not, because that takes time and it's a journey. And so really, what a beautiful gift we've been given with this time to really bring together the power of information with the gift of wisdom. And the connector between those two are relationships, and us needing each other, us respecting each other, us being for each other, and us really finding a way that we can bridge the gaps of anything that comes between us. What a great just commitment to really start to practice something every day. Whoever shows up, whatever I get triggered about, or whatever I'm, not so fabulous about, what gift do they have to teach me to help me get better? And maybe I'm part of their journey as well.
Yeah, so beautiful. And that's really wonderfully put, because people do come into our lives and there's an opportunity for us to learn. And I think that if we take it right back to the very start, when we meet each other, if we put a label on that person, and those labels happen really quickly, like it's almost automatic, whether that label be that you're a woman, or whether it's about your skin color or your race or the clothes that you're wearing, as soon as I put a label on you, and I might put several labels on you, well, then all I'm ever going to interact with is my labels. I'm not going to interact with who you are. And when we've realized that, if we sit down in front of another person and get close enough where we can look directly into each other's eyes, we don't see skin color. We don't see gender. We don't see sexual preference. It's just another being, you know? And I reckon, I mean, that's a beautiful exercise to just sit with somebody and look into their eyes, and
to be
you know,
seen. I
we,
mean, what you're referencing is just that gift of you seeing me and me seeing you, and how we see each other for who we are versus our labels or who we're supposed to be, or the role that we're playing in that person's life. I mean, so many times we're connected because we can get something from someone, and so we see them as something that is missing from our life that we need. And we're whole. We've got everything we need. Whatever the connection is, it's just to go deeper versus to fill a void or a hole. And so, John, I really, respect and value just that ability to be seen, to be heard, to be honored and respected, and to learn from whatever it is that we're seeing.
well, it's really cool. And thank you for this topic, Colette, because I'm telling you now, I'm learning about this one right now. And it's a few more years of learning, I think. But I think we all are. So it was really lovely to talk about this topic. Yeah. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, John, thank you for the gift of just sharing conversations. You and I are rookies when it comes to this. I think the whole world is, in terms of just we've got that wisdom in our heart, but how we do it, none of us know. We're figuring it out, and I'm so grateful to just the people that show up in my life, and you're one of them, and just that ability to say, let's have a conversation. So, thank you for the gift of your time and conversation.
Thanks, Colette.
Okay, team, it's up to you. John and I have certainly learned a lot from each other with no script, just really opening our hearts and our minds and saying, what is it that we want to figure out together, and how can we really serve and support each other on the journey? So it's up to you. Go out and be a champion for you. Really feel that love, receive that love, and give that love. Thank you so much for you being you.